Welcome to the Althing podcast, where discussions with engaging health innovators are shared. In this episode, we will talk about secondary traumatic stress with Althing's licensed independent clinical social worker, Christy, and Althing's clinic manager, Ariel. Before we get started, a quick reminder that this podcast about trauma includes potential triggers, such as sexual assault, physical and emotional abuse, historical traumatic events, and conversations about mental health diagnoses. I'm now turning it over to Christy and Ariel. Welcome to the podcast. And we are excited to talk about secondary traumatic stress today and how this affects your roles. And also, let's learn a little bit why this topic really matters to us and probably our audience as well. So, Christy, take it from here, please.
Yeah. So as I hope most of you remember, my name is Christina Bechtel. I'm a licensed independent clinical social worker. So I provide mental health therapy to folks and definitely experience a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about today. That secondary traumatic stress is absolutely something I have to be careful about. Vicarious trauma, compassion, fatigue, burnout. These are all things that are very prevalent in my line of work. So I've had to come up with a lot of coping skills to be able to keep myself safe in my work in order to truly help other people. So again, I love the opportunity talking about this stuff, and I can't wait to share with you all. Ariel?
I am Ariel Martin. I am Althing Clinic's clinic manager at our Austin location. I take care of making sure things run smoothly at the clinic and oversee how things run at the clinic and our behavioral health program.
Awesome. And I think, like Christy said, we all have coping skills to manage stress or things we experience at work. So I think we all can share from different perspectives today how this applies to this topic. And yeah, Christy, let's maybe start it off with, I think, a little exercise. Is that right?
Yeah, we're gonna start something new this time. When we talk about coping skills, I realize that, I'm able to kind of share some ideas about coping skills, but that's going under the assumption that everybody knows how to utilize them. So I thought I would take a little bit of time today to actually teach you some breathing techniques that you can utilize when you are feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling stressed, anxious, even depressed. I mean, anytime, it's always a good idea to just be mindful in that moment. Take a breath. And I wanted to teach you a couple different breathing techniques. Let's start with my favorite breathing techniques. It's called box breathing. Some people call it square breathing. So what you do is, and I'll explain it first, and then we'll do it a couple times. You would inhale through your nose for a count of 4 seconds. And then you're going to hold air in your lungs for 4 seconds. And then you're going to exhale through your mouth for 4 seconds. And then you're going to hold without air in your lungs for 4 seconds. And you are going to do that, anyone? 4 times. You're going to do it 4 times. Yep. All right. So let's take a minute, and everybody go ahead and breathe in through your nose for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, inhale through your nose. 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. Okay, do a couple more on your own. How'd that feel?
Relaxing.
Right?
Yeah, I can really feel how the tension, especially in my shoulder area, really eases off. And I feel like sometimes, we are pulling up our shoulders if we have some tension, and that really helps me personally to just, relax and, focus on your breathing and just release that tension. So
Absolutely. I know sometimes I get kind of anxious before doing something like this, either doing a training or even a podcast. This is my go-to coping skill. Right before that, it always calms me down. It never fails. Another one that you can do is something called the 4-7-8 breathing. And this is one where you inhale through your nose for 4 seconds, you hold your breath for 7 seconds, and then you exhale through your mouth for 8 seconds. And now some folks, this is a little bit harder, especially if you don't have that lung capacity. So really what I say is just do it as long as you can. So try it out with me. You're going to inhale through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale through your mouth for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there's no instructions on how many times you need to do this. So I really just say do it as long as you need to get yourself to feel calm, to feel comfortable. There's some kind of scientific something that says if you exhale longer than you're inhaling, it literally calms the nervous system down. This is also an awesome exercise to utilize if you're not able to sleep at night. By regulating your breathing and really focusing and being mindful on your breathing, it'll put you to sleep in no time. So these are just a couple coping skills, breathing techniques that you can use if you're feeling really escalated or you're, like I said, stressed, anxious, whatever the emotion is. Just take a minute. Just do some deep breathing, and I guarantee you'll feel better. So, all right. Should we move forward with the... All right. So let's talk about workplace stressors. There's going to be 4 workplace stressors that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about secondary traumatic stress. It's a big one, especially for folks who work with other folks, whether that be as a social worker, as a therapist, as a doctor, any job you have in which you would be working with another person. It's secondary traumatic stress is a possibility. So very important to be able to identify it and then address it. Second thing we're going to be talking about, vicarious trauma. We'll go into that a little bit more. Compassion fatigue, and then burnout. So let's start with vicarious trauma. So have either of you ever heard or said the phrase like, come on, let me live vicariously through you when you're, wanting to hear about somebody's vacation or that date they went on or something? Yeah. So vicarious trauma is pretty much that, except think about it as now it's risky, because when you are talking with somebody and they're sharing their story with you, again, whether you're a case manager, social worker, teacher, whatever it may be, right? Let's say that you have earned the trust of that person that you're talking to, and they feel safe enough with you to tell you a little bit of their story. When we're talking about being trauma informed, recognizing that there's potentially a story under there that might be responsible for the responses that you're getting, right? Mm-hmm. So if they trust you enough to share their story with you, and you wanna listen, and you wanna be, an active listener and make them feel safe, because that's what we're here for, right? We're there to make them feel safe. The problem is that once you start to hear multiple stories time after time after time, some of those stories start to impact you in pretty negative ways, right? So longer term exposure is going to start changing how you see the world and others. I like to say it's the emotional residue of exposure that we have from working with people as we're hearing their trauma stories and becoming witness to the pain, fear, and terror that trauma survivors have endured. Another way to really identify how vicarious trauma is different is, let's say that you are somebody who at the beginning of your career, you are adamantly against capital punishment. You don't believe in the death sentence. You don't believe in eye for an eye, all of that stuff. You believe that everybody should, live their lives. And that's what you believe. But then after, 5 years of hearing people's stories, all of a sudden you start thinking maybe they don't use the death penalty enough. Maybe they should be using it more often. that's when you start to notice vicarious trauma is sinking in, because now your worldviews are starting to change and alter based on the stories that you're hearing. That's a really good indicator that you're experiencing vicarious trauma. It's gonna, again, it's this emotional change in you. Um, so yeah, that is vicarious trauma. Secondary traumatic stress. This is going to be kind of so imagine, you're talking to somebody who's experiencing symptoms of trauma, right? They're not sleeping. Maybe they're a little bit more irritable, anxiety, depression. They're not eating. Secondary traumatic stress, the way you're going to know that you're experiencing it is when you're starting to have those same symptoms that they're having. And it kind of comes out of nowhere. Like, you don't even realize that you were truly affected by all those stories you heard until you start to notice maybe you're not sleeping as well at night. Maybe those stories are starting to linger a little bit more. Maybe you're starting to notice that certain things are triggering you in ways that they weren't triggering you before. This is an indication that you're experiencing secondary traumatic stress. You have those PTSD-like reactions and hypervigilance without actually having experienced a traumatic event in the first place. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It does. When you talk about that, Christy, is there, when you think about the process and how things sometimes start, is it common that you might experience the trouble falling asleep first? Or, is there, like, when things are creeping in, is there a sign that you should watch out for right away? Or is it really dependent on your situation, your, the exposure you have and so forth?
I really think it's going to be different for everybody because we all have different situations, right? Like something that would probably be an indicator to me that I'm experiencing secondary traumatic stress is, let's say that I'm all of a sudden feeling anxious about a certain thing that I wasn't feeling anxious about before, like driving. I'm not scared to drive. I love driving. But all of a sudden I start to notice that I get really anxious when I get behind the wheel. And I'm starting to be able to correlate that I've been working with a patient who, suffered a horrendous car accident and has been processing through the events of that car accident. Maybe that's an indicator for me, right? Now, let's say that you're a person who has children and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you start feeling more irritable with your children every time they start, being kids and yelling and screaming and having a good time, right? It's all of a sudden, it's like nails on a chalkboard to you. Like, maybe that's an indicator that something is going on. So I think it's going to be different for everybody, but I think the indicator is going to be if it's kind of out of nowhere, like you have no idea what is different, what could be going on. And that's why it's going to be really important to kind of check in with yourself and be in tune with yourself and how you're feeling. Does that make sense?
It does. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, so just with those first two, thinking about vicarious trauma and secondary traumatic stress, I mean, so Ariel, you're a social worker. Is this something that you believe you've experienced in your career so far?
Yeah, definitely both. So I have kind of a wide variety of skills in my pocket and populations that I've worked with. And there are, some of those are jail populations, some are community populations, some of them are supervised settings, some of them are unsupervised, but definitely have experienced both of them. I am a very empathetic person. So when I'm listening to people's stories, I'm also trying to help in any way that I can. That's the heart of the social worker. That's what we're trained to do. But sometimes it gets to be heavy. But I have noticed at different points in my life where, as I'm not directly correlating it to something, but I have noticed the times where I'm like shorter with my kids, or the whining and the fighting that sometimes happens between siblings, is it just feels heavier on me after dealing with some of those situations.
Absolutely. How do you do it? How do you deal with it?
I have done the 4-7-8 breathing.
Right?
That does help me sleep as well. So that's a technique that I was familiar with before, but I have to do things to fill my cup back up and take care of myself, because as a social worker, I'm not only taking care of people at work and taking care of stuff at home, like I'm just always wearing so many different hats, whether it's work, home, sporting events. There's just always something going on. So I have to take that time for myself.
Mm. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then so there's the next one, which is compassion fatigue, which again, pretty prevalent, especially in our line of work, in working with clinic. Not only trying to meet the physical needs of all of our patients, but also the mental health needs. And the idea behind compassion fatigue is that it's like the overall experience of emotional and physical fatigue that professionals experience due to chronic use of empathy when working with clients who are suffering in some way. We sometimes see our clients when they are at their rock bottom, when they are at their worst, and they are just begging for people to help them and to make things better. And especially in a society in which we are so short on resources that cannot match the need, it creates more compassion fatigue. It's like we want to help so bad. I mean, that's why we got into this field, right? Is to help other people. But after a while, and again, this is something that we have to be really careful of when we're thinking about protecting ourselves, is that if we're not careful, if we allow ourselves to fall into that compassion fatigue category, all of a sudden we're not able to help anybody because we literally have nothing else to give. And I know that's pretty common. And then the last one, talking about burnout, right? So I think this is one that we can all relate to. Burnout is incredibly prevalent, not just in social services, in every career, I believe, and really in life. But like, we're busy, right? If we have family, friends, taking care of the house, taking care of the apartment, taking care of pets, we're constantly trying to meet the needs of other people. Sometimes we don't always have time to take care of ourselves. Right. So you really start to see that emotional depletion. So suddenly you start feeling really cynical about what you're doing because you got nothing left in the tank to give. I guess I'm very curious, Katya, from your perspective. I mean, you kind of are, you're the manager, so you're like literally managing everything. Do you experience burnout in your line of work?
I think what I've learned very early when I was in school and while I was a professional athlete, that it's so vital to take care of yourself and really watch very closely what you are experiencing, right? So thankfully, personally, I have not experienced burnout symptoms myself yet, but I'm always aware, and I think that's why I really care about our employees and everybody I'm interacting with to make sure they are okay. And if you look at some statistics, we all know burnout is really prevalent, and it's 65% of employees that reported any form of burnout in the past year, and that's a lot of people. And from a management perspective, it's vital to have healthy employees to bring, the services that we are so passionate about to our clients, to our community partners, to everybody we interact with. So, yeah, what Ariel said earlier really resonated with me too. It's like, okay, I need to make time for myself so I can be the best I can when I interact with my teams, with my, partners, employees, everybody else. So, I think sometimes too, personally, you want to do a good job. You put a lot of pressure on yourself because you're excited about what we're doing. You want to perform, but it's also, yes, you want to perform, but don't forget about yourself. And it's a good reminder between us as well, to say, I know you're doing great. You're doing a good job, and we all have great days and we have better days. So having that understanding from a management perspective, I think is vital to have a healthy team, to have a healthy company, and to really have the growth that we are looking for as an entity right now.
Hmm. I would think that there's also this added layer because not only do you kind of like in your positions where you're kind of overseeing program development and other employees, not only do you have to be kind of cautious about where you're at with your burnout and being very mindful, but you also kind of have to be watching your employees to make like, are you seeing signs from them that they're burned out, and is that impacting their mental health and their performance at work?
Right. And how can you catch it early, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to wait until it reaches a crisis state. You want to have a good rapport with your team where you have always the opportunity to talk to your manager, your supervisor, your coworkers, like, hey, I'm really feeling tired today, or I'm just needing some time for myself. And that is something that I always encourage, because I think it is vital. We all have a life. We have kids, we have things that pop up out of nowhere. Our car breaks down, our, water heater breaks, or things like that impact us. And just having an understanding of that, being aware and making it a topic really matters too, that mental health gets destigmatized, that we can talk about the things that we're experiencing. And I think that's not only part of our own culture, but also part of the program that we are offering to school districts, to community members, to companies with our AIRS events, like the Assess, Intervene, Refer service piece. We want to know how people are feeling. We want to catch things as they're starting, not when they reach a crisis state. We want to offer a way to services immediately. And that's really what we not only offer to our clients and patients and partners, but that's something we live as a company as well.
Yeah, and I can definitely piggyback off of what Katya is saying. So with that burnout, I started my role in April, and I feel like I just hit the ground running. And I feel like if I didn't have that support from Katya and my team, I don't know, I am a social worker, so I have that background. But just thinking if I had a different background and I was coming into this position, I don't know that I would be able to handle some of the things that have come up. But like Katya said, it's having that awareness from a team perspective and saying like, hey, you seem kind of stressed out today. Are you okay? Like, do you need to take off a little bit early? Do you need to do something for you today? Or just simply asking people how they're doing, not just focusing on them as a worker, but them as a person. So I think having that background really helps with that too. But like you said, we all experience that burnout, whether it's at home, it's at work. We live in a society that we are constantly on the go. So you're going from work to picking the kids up to home to getting those things done that need to be done. And it gets to the point where you do need to be aware and kind of check yourself out a little bit. And the thing that I do, I need to shut my brain off because my brain is constantly going from the time I wake up to the time I finally say, hey, this is my hour where I am just going to watch a show and shut my brain off. That's how I just check out for an hour.
Yeah, that sounds exhausting. I have, whenever I see somebody with a computer open and they have like 50 tabs open, Katya knows what I'm talking about because I've seen her computer. All I can think when I see that is, how many tabs does this person have going on in their head? Like, I mean, I'm a huge fan of multitasking, but that is overwhelming to me. How do you do that, Katya?
I think also having clear boundaries, right? And being able to prioritize as well. you have to ask yourself, is this something that has to be done right away, or is it okay to do that later? And I personally feel like being respectful of the time after work, so unless it's really an emergency or something is really, really pressing, I do not contact our team members after hours or on weekends. Everybody has to have their time to decompress, to relax, to, like Ariel said, just shut their minds off. So I think making it part of our culture as an employer is vital, and also understanding that if people are experiencing burnout symptoms, they are also more likely to search for other jobs, or they are more likely to that their performance is impacted in some way. And we want to obviously all want to perform at top of our capabilities. So yeah, it's just, sometimes it sounds so simple, but just be a good human being, just be good to each other, and really care about the ones that you're working with. If you're a social worker, your clients, if you are a supervisor, your team, if just really care about the person you work with. And I think that will help that everybody succeeds, and that's really the ultimate goal.
Boom. Lesson done. Podcast over. Yeah, no, exactly. And I think one thing that we have to be really careful about, especially, this is a really good indicator to figure out if you are burned out, is when we start depersonalizing. And what that means is that when you start to depersonalize, let's say that you are a social worker and you are staffing a case with a fellow social worker. And I mean, this is really important. I mean, we'll talk about this later when we go over, some prevention techniques. It is very important to be able to process through some of this stuff that we're hearing. But if you start to notice that the way in which you talk about your clients is incredibly negative and cynical, you're depersonalizing them. What you're effectively doing is keeping them at arm's length. You are removing yourself from any of the negative things that have happened with that client. You're making sure everybody knows that their downfall is their fault and nothing to do with you, right? When you start to notice that you're talking pretty negatively about your clients, and then let's go on further, you're starting to talk negative about your employees, about your friends, about your partners, whatever, right? When you start to really start depersonalizing yourself, that's a really good indicator that you're burned out. And it's maybe time to take a look at your load, and maybe it's, let's lighten that up a little bit. Let's maybe go on vacation. Let's figure out what we have to do to get you to a place where you can go back to being your kind and compassionate self.
Right.
So yeah. Another indication of any of these, burnout, compassion fatigue, secondary traumatic stress, vicarious stress, when you start to kind of do that counter transference, right? When your own stuff kind of starts bleeding into your work without you even realizing it, that means that there's some counter transference going on. And maybe your subconscious is having a really hard time separating work from personal home life. And that's a good indicator that something's going on and we need to assess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's my 4. Any thoughts before we move on?
This is a really great topic, and obviously we can chat a lot more about this, but I feel like it's vital to put the flashlight on this topic, because it not only impacts everybody, it also impacts the employees, the employers, the companies, our communities, our kids, everybody. And I think this is really vital. And I really appreciate, Christy, that you're sharing not only what to watch out for, but also some recommendations on what you can do if you're experiencing XYZ. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're definitely going to get into what you can do about it. But first, let's just kind of chat about what kind of things cause workplace stressors. Any, things like bureaucratic constraints, right? There's sometimes a lot of red tape in our jobs, rules and regulations that we have to make sure we're following in order to keep getting funding. But sometimes those rules and regulations have a tendency to prevent us from actually being able to do our jobs effectively, from actually being able to help the person that we're trying to help. So those bureaucratic constraints can really cause some of these workplace stressors. Inadequate supervision. If your supervisor is not available, they're out of touch, doesn't really know what they're doing, that can sometimes cause some of these workplace stressors. Lack of resources, that's a huge one, especially today. And it only, to be honest, in my opinion, I guess I should say, I feel like it only gets worse where the need continues to grow and the resources can continue to deplete. That can really cause some of these workplace stressors. If you are a person who has poor boundaries, right? Sometimes we really want to help. So we go outside of our immediate job descriptions and what our role is supposed to be to meet those needs of our clients. Because if we don't do it, who's going to do it, right? It's easier for us to just do instead of helping our clients learn how to be resourceful on their own. But when you do that too often, now you start to notice yourself having some of these burnout, compassion fatigue type stuff. Communication is huge. And so if you are working in a place where there's poor communication, that can cause some of these workplace stressors. And let's say that you are somebody who has more than one supervisor. I had a job at the county once, and I'm not kidding you, I think I had 6 supervisors at one point, between the manager and the director and my MHP and my direct supervisor and the departments. Like, it was insane. I had 6 different people telling me what to do. And if all 6 of those people weren't on the same page, and if they were telling me to do different things, that just added such a layer of stress to my job and ultimately ended up making more work for me because I would do, something one way because that's what this supervisor told me, but now I have to redo it to this way because now this person, so having more than one supervisor, if they're not on the same page, can definitely cause some of these workplace stressors. Insufficient training for your role, that can cause some stressors. Taking work home with you. I know you two never take work home with you, right?
No.
Never.
Okay. Wow. Congratulations to be the only 2 people in America who don't take work home with you. And then last one that I talk about, when there's a lot of interpersonal conflict within the workplace, that can definitely cause these workplace stressors, the burnout, especially if you're not feeling that support in your place of work, that can cause issues. And some of the things that cause those interpersonal conflicts, there seems to be a pattern in our society that states that we have to believe what everyone else believes. We have to share all of the same opinions. And if we don't share those opinions, or somebody has a different opinion than ourselves, we get offended by it. We take that personally.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're being real, can we all agree that every single one of us experiences life differently based on our race, our gender, our disabilities, our social class standing, our sexuality, right? Like, we're all different people. We've all had different experiences. So of course, we are all going to respond to things in a very different way. We're all going to believe things in a very different way. So if we can get past this idea that we all have to share each other's opinions, I think you would see a lot less conflict. And I think that if you are a person who is experiencing conflict, if you take a minute to be kind of mindful in that moment and recognize that that person believes that way or is thinking that thing because of their experiences that they've had, and it doesn't invalidate your own experiences, it doesn't mean that the way you do things is wrong. It's just different, right? I think that would really decrease a lot of this interpersonal conflict. Have you two ever heard of something called 4 agreements?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So the 4 Agreements was a book written by Don Miguel Ruiz, brilliant man. And he came up with these 4 agreements that if you follow these, it'll significantly decrease the opportunity for interpersonal conflict. Agreement number 1, be impeccable with your word. So if you're able to be mindful about the words that are coming out of your mouth, that they are kind and considerate and compassionate, right? Be impeccable with your word. So be mindful about what you're saying. If you can practice that mindfulness and think about what you say before you say it, you're going to be good. And I think that this is really hard for us to do. And you two tell me if you ever do this, but sometimes I will be in a conversation with somebody and I will be thinking about what I want to say to them while they're talking to me. Like I'm already thinking about my response before they talk. But what's the problem with that?
You're not listening.
I'm not listening. I'm not respecting them enough to be able to listen to the words they're saying. I'm already coming back. So if we can practice active listening and wait for our turn, again, I guarantee you'd see less conflict, right? Agreement number 2, don't take things personally. Again, let's remember that we all have different experiences, and that person may think or say something that you don't agree with. That's okay. That's not offensive. That's not meant to be offensive. You simply disagree. Right? Now, are there people out there who say things to purposely hurt other people? Absolutely, right? But do we get offended more often than that actually happens? Probably. Third agreement, don't make assumptions. This is really hard, especially for me. I have a tendency to make assumptions when I really shouldn't make assumptions, and I should just communicate and ask the question first. So I often get reminded that I need to stop doing that every single day. I've been doing this. I've been talking about this for more than a decade in my life. I still actively work on this. So do your very best not to make assumptions. Don't assume you know what another person is thinking or feeling. And then agreement number 4 is always do your best. Always strive for your best effort in all things. If you can do those, if you can keep to those 4 agreements when you are in a conversation with somebody else, it will significantly decrease the opportunity for interpersonal conflict.
And I like what you said there too, Christy. Start with a question, right? And that sounds so trivial, but it makes such a big difference. So that is something that I learned personally. If I'm, in a situation where I feel like, okay, maybe there is a potential for conflict or, maybe a potential misunderstanding, really just ask a question. Start with a question and not with a statement. And really, that has helped me a lot in my role and my development.
Yeah. Practice curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking to a coworker and they seem off or they're not responding the way they normally would, instead of assuming that they're mad at you, right? ask the question, like, what? I wonder what's going on with them, And if you feel comfortable enough, if you feel safe enough with that person, ask, like, is everything okay? You seem kind of off today. And let's say that you're in a situation where something feels off, you're definitely noticing that it's impacting people and clients around them, but you don't feel comfortable or safe enough with that person to ask, then maybe you bring it up to your supervisor and say, hey, so-and-so seems a little off today. I just thought I'd bring it to your attention just in case they need some support. And really check your intentions there. Right. It's one thing to be like, to go to your supervisor and be like, so-and-so is in a really bad mood, right? Are you trying to just get them in trouble, or are you genuinely concerned about what might be going on with them? So I would encourage you to check your intentions and, do your very best not to take on other people's energies. That can be really, really hard not to take that on. But if you just can kind of imagine a bubble around yourself, nothing's getting into that bubble. You're in a good mood. You're going to stay in a good mood, and you hope so-and-so gets in a better mood later. Yeah.
And That's kind of a key. Sorry to interrupt you there, Christy, but it's really once you're experiencing, let's say, somebody's energy, or if somebody's feeling down or is really, negative about it, I think that can also impact everybody else around them. And sometimes I feel like you really have to snap out of that mindset yourself, to help to be the positive influence, to stay positive, to continue to enforce that culture that you appreciate amongst the team. So I think that's really something that we have to be aware of, that sometimes can spread a little bit too, and we actively have to be not only aware of it, but we have the opportunity to step in and stop it right there.
Yeah, one thing that I would always recommend is, like, let's say that you're talking to somebody and you don't agree. Like, you're having a conversation, you're seeing things from very different perspectives based on the experiences that you've had, right? Maybe it gets a little bit heated. One thing that I would encourage you to do is refrain from starting a sentence with the word you. Because when you start off saying, well, you, it comes across as accusatory immediately. You're kind of pointing, metaphorical fingers at them. That's already going to make somebody feel pretty defensive. But if you were to start off your sentence with, in my experience, in my opinion, my understanding is, right? If you make it about what you understand, I mean, they can't take that away from you. They can't, if you say my experience is this and they say, no, it isn't. Well, yes, it is actually. If you say, well, it's my belief that blah, 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 they can't tell you that's not your belief. That's your belief. You own that, right? So if you kind of adjust the way in which you're communicating, even by how you're starting off your sentences, decrease in interpersonal conflict. And my favorite suggestion is, let's say that you're in a situation in which you did say something that was kind of offensive and you didn't mean to, but it came out. And this person is comfortable and trusts you and feels safe enough to call you out and say, hey, this thing you said really didn't sit right with me. Instead of saying you're sorry, say thank you. Like, literally say, oh my gosh, thank you so much for letting me know that. And then it's your responsibility to do better next time. But when you come back with, sorry, kind of what you're doing in that moment is you're putting it on them now. Now the ball's in their court. Either they forgive you or they don't. But if they don't, then it's on them that you are still fighting. Right? So you're kind of putting them in an uncomfortable position. Not only did you offend them, but now you're putting it on them to have to forgive you in order to repair that relationship. And that's not really fair. So I would definitely encourage folks, like, just say thank you. Thank you for letting me know, and then do better next time. Now, there are times when this would be inappropriate, right? Like, you can't just go punch somebody in the face and then they tell you it hurts, and then you're like, hey, thanks for letting me know that, right? Like, that's probably not an appropriate use of that. Maybe you actually want to apologize in that moment. So be mindful. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on interpersonal relationships. And to be honest, like, just to be very real and vulnerable with you, I forget most of this stuff. When I'm in a conversation and I'm heated and I'm feeling attacked and insulted, it is very hard for me to remember these things that I teach. This is not easy, but it does come down to, again, being mindful, practicing, always trying again, and just trying to do better next time. You're not always going to get it right, but the first step is recognizing that you struggle in the first place. So.
That's really helpful. And I really appreciate, being so honest here, Christy, and sharing some of those prevention strategies that are working for you. And again, this is just a toolbox that we're opening here, right? So everybody can pick what they think works best for them. So I know you've gave us a lot of good insights already. What other practical prevention strategies do you have that you could share with us and our audience today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, I would say set realistic goals with regards to your workload. And sometimes that means sitting down with your supervisor and listing out everything on your to-do list. And first off, going through it and figuring out, is this something that you should actually be doing? Is it within your job description? Right. And I think, Katya, you and I have probably had opportunities to do this where I'm like, I think I have to do this. And then you're like, nope, you don't have to worry about that right now. Okay, cool. I'll worry about this stuff over here. Right. So it's about being very realistic with your workload, and do you have the capacity to do it in that moment or in that day? And just making sure that you're on the same page with your supervisor to make sure that everything you're doing, you should be doing, and in the time that it needs to be done. And if all of those stuff, if everything that you write down is on your to-do list is actually something that you have to be getting done, let's have a conversation about a realistic timeline to get those things done, right? If you are getting paid for 40 hours a week, you should never be working 60 hours a week to get your workload done, because then you need to look at your workload, and it's maybe time to talk about shifting some stuff around. So I would encourage you to set realistic goals with regards to your caseload. Utilize your breaks. I mean, we're all supposed to take breaks throughout the day. I think they literally make it a law, right? Where's our HR rep? I mean, I think it's 2.5 or something like that. Like, and so many people work through their breaks. They eat lunch while they're doing progress notes, like I did today, right? I would encourage folks that if you're feeling, or not even if, like a preventative measure to not getting burnt out is by taking the breaks that you are afforded. And even if that means taking a quick 10-minute walk around the block, do it. Take advantage of those opportunities to just be with yourself. Take advantage of any processing time. So again, if you are somebody who has clients, make sure that you're actually utilizing your staffing time. I think, again, I've been in a situation where I've been so busy that I've canceled like supervision time, but then I don't have that opportunity to process through what I'm doing. That's not a good thing. So take advantage of that time to talk to your coworkers or your supervisor and just process through what you're going through. I would encourage you, when we're talking prevention now, getting adequate rest, relaxation is a huge one and hard for us to do, especially if we are somebody with 6 kids and a house to take care of and a husband almost. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Ari?
Especially when you're like, my way of shutting my brain off is watching TV, and then you get really into a TV show and it's super hard to go to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's just always a lot going on. And it is super hard to get rest all the time, especially adequate rest. But yeah, I mean, prioritizing that, and I have to tell myself, like, yep, I need to shut the TV off. Desperate Housewives can wait until tomorrow. Friends can wait until tomorrow. And just making sure that I have enough rest to start the day over tomorrow. And teaching my kids that they also have to get that rest, so we're not cranky and crabby the next day. Yeah.
And that might mean turning the work notifications off on your phone from 5 p.m. until 8 a.m. the next day, right?
Yeah. Yep. I have found that hard in the past, but getting better at setting that boundary.
Yeah. And it's that thing, right? It's the take work home with you. It's really hard to do when you work from home. For those of you out there who work from home, how do you separate?
I would say it's even more challenging for the ones who are working from home, you know. So I think having a space where you're work versus where you live, I think is vital, where you can get out of that space and get out of work, for example, if that is an option. Sometimes we know people, in smaller apartments don't have that opportunity where they work where they live. And I think that can be challenging. But really, like you said, turning off, your notifications, really taking your breaks, and get out, get some fresh air, right? Go for a little walk, like you said. Those are key pieces that I think apply to anybody in any setting, wherever it's possible.
Mm.
I think working from home was by far the hardest job that I was able to set boundaries at, because my desk was in my room. So when I couldn't sleep at night, I was hopping on that computer and trying to see what I could get done at work. So I had to move my desk down to my kitchen, which still in my home, but it was a little bit easier because as I was going to bed and trying to rest and just recoup for the next day, I wasn't staring at my work. But even working from home, I would always utilize my breaks and call a friend, call a coworker, just as like some social interaction to kind of break up my day, or to just see what's going on in the world, especially if you're working at home and you're not able to step outside for that quick walk. It's just shutting that brain off and utilizing your break.
Yeah. And I mean, and too, like take your vacations, right? If you are a person who is fortunate enough to be in a job in which you get vacation days, take them. Go on vacations, even if it's a staycation. Take the breaks that you get. I have in my career, I've had people brag to me about the amount of vacation hours that they have, and not saved up. It's not like they're saving it up for a trip around the world. No, they don't take their vacations ever, and they're bragging to me about it as they're on their second pack of cigarettes for that day. Like, these two things do not make sense. Take your planned vacations. And I would say that if you're in a place where you do these preventative things and it didn't work, you're still experiencing burnout, you're still experiencing vicarious trauma, secondary traumatic stress, any of these, find out if your place of work offers EAP, which is Employment Assistance Program. Some places offer like up to 3 free therapy sessions. 3 to 5, I think, is kind of a variation. But maybe you are somebody who just needs somebody to go process through all of this stuff and can help get you back in a place of mindfulness. Take advantage of EAP, and furthermore, figure out what resources your employer does have. And I would say to all of you folks out there who are the supervisors and have employees, be on the lookout for folks who might be struggling and have those resources at hand to give them, right? It's important to be looking out for that. And then most important, truly, this is the biggest help I have found in my career. Pat yourself on the back. When you get those wins, take the time to celebrate those wins. It's not, oh, good, now let's move on to the next dumpster fire. No, you take the time you need and you celebrate, obnoxiously celebrate. Make sure everybody in the building knows how excited you are about your win. Like, that is so important, is taking time to really acknowledge those victories, because you worked hard for that. So that is a huge necessary. Yeah, that's what I got.
Lots to process, right? I just want to back off of something that you said and stepping into my role again here, and I'm sure Ariel can add to this, but we are working with entities. We are an EAP provider to bring these vital mental health services to companies to small organizations, small businesses, and so forth. So if you would like more information on that, Ariel would be the one to contact and just learn more how Althing can be helpful, to support your employee health strategies. And I had mentioned earlier that Althing Clinic offers a proactive way to reach employees, communities, kids, athletes, in their setting where we can identify substance use, where we can identify any mental health concerns, safety concerns, and not only identify, but also intervene and refer for ongoing services. So that is something that's at the core of what we do at Althing Clinic, but also something we are all really passionate about, bringing those services that are so desperately needed to our populations and, making it helping them to make the change in their lives that they're looking for. So again, if you are interested in learning more about our AIRS program and how we can bring that to your organization, please don't hesitate to reach out. And in addition to that, we also offer trainings. So Christy has walked us through one right here, but we have a lot of other topics that we cover. So if you're looking for some input for your employee health day, or if you just would like a brief presentation about coping skills, breathing techniques, how to manage burnout, how to prevent burnout, we are happy to provide that as well. And at this point, I would like to say thank you so much, Christy. As always, very insightful. Thank you, Ariel, for joining us today and sharing your experiences and your perspective. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to continuing our podcast series, and plug in any comments if you would like us to cover a certain topic. Let us know. We're happy to include that in our next session. So thank you again, both.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.